bad for bees, so you kind of weigh it down, and just a couple of cedar blocks down. So this is called a telescoping cover, okay? And they call it that because it extends past the hive and it just kind of wraps around it. So if you pick it up and you look at it, you see that when you sit, not through here because you have it straight on the rim. So once you have it on there, you don't have any bees coming out. So, and it's actually an aluminum sheet that they put on it. Aluminum or yeah, I think it's aluminum, but I just painted over the entire thing. I didn't want any reflections up in, you know how they get mad about people pointing laser pointers at airplane pods. I kind of figured out, whatever, I'll just paint the whole thing. So some people do, some people don't. There's no advantage to either. Huh?
Just like the natural green?
Yeah, no, I figured I'll start with that. And they say paint it lightly. White is sort of traditional. Don't paint it anything dark, because if you do, in the middle of the summer, it'll heat up. And bees, regardless of whether it's way sub-freezing or it's 100 degrees outside, they have a ventilation mechanism. Through their wing activity in the winter they keep warm, and in the summer it actually fans air through. So you'll see it in a bit, but the bottom is basically open. It's a mesh so that you can draw air in. And later on the arrangement will be a bit different, and there's actually ways for air to come out the top too. So you do have some ventilation going through. So the next piece that you have, this is called a deep box, okay? And you put frames in that. And the deep ones is what you have brood in, because you don't want these kind of boxes for honey. When this thing is chock full with honey and you pick it up, you're picking up north of 100 pounds. So you don't want that for honey. It's just too heavy, not good. Excuse me here. So, but the reason why I'm going to have it on here for now is because when we put the feeder upside down on it, it protects the feeder, the sugar syrup that we have from robbers, so you don't have wasps coming or ants coming, anything like that. You really have a very limited access. It's really only through that hole, through the bottom, and through this hole right now that anybody could come in. That's big enough for a young colony like ours to where they can defend that. Anything bigger and they're going to have trouble defending a young hive. So this here is called the inner cover, okay? So later on, after the feeding is over in a long time from now,
how often do you have to feed them?
I'll have to see how quickly they tear through. Yeah, at the beginning you have to feed them a lot because they don't have any honey to draw from yet. And the reason why you feed them this 1 part water, 1 part sugar, is because it'll stimulate them to draw out those wax cells. The wax, the process of building the wax out is called drawing comb. Okay, and that's where they store pollen. They'll store honey there. Later on, brood. You need comb for everything, and that's a very expensive process. It takes 8 pounds of honey to draw 1 pound of wax. So it's a very laborious, very intensive process for them to do. So the established beehives that you see, they're a big step ahead because they don't have to draw out comb anymore. So they're already well ahead, and they don't have to feed as heavy anymore as us new people. So, but later on, this cover actually goes under the telescoping cover, and that what bees will do is they will try to glue this down. Anything less than 3/8 of an inch, they use propolis, which is a bee glue. Okay, it's sort of a super glue, and they just seal everything up around so that you don't have any airflow, any robbers, no nothing. And anything larger than 3/8, they built wax. It's called burr comb. So everything in the hive, give or take, you're going to have about a 3/8 tolerance, and that's just enough to where they're comfortable moving around. A little bit more between the frames because you're still drawing out wax, and that way you have bees crawling on this side and bees crawling on that side, so that's a larger gap. But yep, later on, This cover makes it a lot easier taking this telescoping cover off, because then this one will be glued down by the bees and you just pry it off with a hive tool. So that makes it much easier than trying to get under that.
So when you're trying to pry it off, where will the bees be?
They'll be all over. So you have some that come through, and they might even use it as an entrance or an exit at that point. And at this time, it's going to be pretty mild. In July or so, late June, when you have a lot of activity in the hive, which is when I'll wear the suit, you have to be more careful, because you might have as many as 40,000 bees later. So yeah, they're going to quadruple over the year. That's the idea. I got to get a strong colony to get them through the winter. So, any questions? All right. So you got another deep, just like that box, but this one is going to be what we're going to start with. So the setup that you have is called a 10 frame. Okay, I have them labeled 1 through 10, and they're going to draw out that wax comb on these guys. So if you pick them up, here you go, pass that around. That's a black plastic foundation that has a slight coating of wax on it. And when they manufacture these things, they start them out on the right shape. So you see what you have there is what they'll make three-dimensional, and it's going to be a very, very perfectly built out comb.
They would be able to do that.
Yep, they start on that.
A little extra help.
Say again?
I mean, they would naturally they'd be able to come up with this.
Yes,
That's
naturally.
hexagonal shape.
Yep, you just give them a little bit of. Yep, it has a slight coating of wax on it. But the black ones are used for brood, because when you inspect your hive and you're looking for an egg, okay, the first 3 days you have eggs. The eggs are going to be a really bright, clearish white, okay, and white on black, you can see immediately. So when you're looking for eggs, to make sure that you have new bees coming up, thank you, you can see it on the black very easily. So that's why you use black for that. So, and then underneath this guy, this is just from the paint, it's still sticking a bit. There we go. I need my hive tool already, I tell you. Okay. So there. Let's stay right. Yeah. So here you've got this is called your bottom board. Okay, there are 2 parts. There are 2 parts to it, but I think they're pretty much glued with paint together right now. This is sort of where they, bless you, where they disjoined, but yeah. So it's big enough for mites to fall through, but not big enough for bees to fall through. So even when you have dead bees in the hive, which will happen, it's a natural occurrence. Bees will die in the hive. The workers will clear them out through the entrance, and they'll just, you'll see a bunch of dead bees around here later this year, and it's just normal. So literally, yeah, there's the colony has a very hygienic behavior to it, and they really do clean up after themselves. They don't like a messy hive. It's not good for them, and they know that. So, but a lot of the problems that you have with bees is a mite that attaches to the back of the bee, where the bee can't get rid of the mite, and it kind of sucks it dry. It's sort of like maybe what a tick is for people. You know, you don't want ticks because ticks suck the blood out of you. That's sort of what the mites do, but it's a lot worse for the bees than it is for us.
Is that mite the scourge on bees that they've talked about? Disease that bees have been doing?
It's one of many. Yep, varroa mites is one of the big ones, though. And you have others.
Is that a regional thing? Is it?
No, it's all across the United States, and I'm starting to connect with beekeepers around the world, and they have them everywhere. So I don't recall where they came from, but it's just a pest. But if you have a very strong colony, and they are able to rid themselves of that. Another trick that they do is you can take a confectionate sugar and you sprinkle it on top of your hive, okay? and it gets on the mite's feet, and they can no longer adhere to the bee, and they drop off the bee. They get all the sugar on their feet, and they can't hang on anymore. So there are a few tricks like that, and the last of which is using a chemical to treat them, and I'm hoping to avoid any and all of that, because it goes into your comb, and it can get into your honey. It's all consumable by people, but why do it if you don't have to, right? So I'm trying my best to avoid that scenario. And then, last but not least, you have your entrance area, okay? And a takeoff and a landing ramp. And it's actually pretty cool. Just this morning I saw pictures of somebody, they must have been just about here. This was a beekeeper in London, and she took a picture, and you literally, you see them flying. It's like at an airport where they're coming in one after another. And the reason why this helps so much is because when they come in, if you look at the bee, they have a big old golden ball at their back, okay? And that's where all the pollen is stored that you were talking about. They collect all that pollen, and they kind of brush it into a pollen sac, okay? And that's what they bring in. You can actually harvest that pollen. It's got a lot of protein, and some people eat it. You know, it's just a source of protein, but they then process it.
Does it help to build up, like to stop an allergy?
Yes, a lot of that.
To local honey.
Mhm.
My dad and I have really bad allergies. He takes a spoonful of local honey every day.
Does it help with his allergies?
We'll try anything. I mean, I think so.
If he takes a spoonful a day, that's probably his standard. He doesn't know what it's like without it anymore.
Right.
So,
Right.
but
How about the birds? Are the birds going to eat any of the bees?
they might. But the regeneration rate of your bees is so large. You
What's
know.
the gestation period for a bee?
Well, a queen will lay, give or take, 1,000 eggs a day. She's good for 5 million. So she'll lay. That's all she does. She goes out for a mating flight, and I think mine has already made it, unless I'm completely mistaken. So she'll start laying eggs as soon as she can.
How do you tell that?
You inspect the frame. So
I mean, how do you know that yours has already been?
in one word, yes. There's nothing I can add to that. Yes, we settled that. So, yeah, that's funny. So, but it takes 16 days for a new queen to emerge, 21 days for a female worker, 24 days for a male drone. So those are the
Oh, okay.
the periods that they'll go with. So that's it. And
So you, I mean, I'm sure you're going to walk us through how you get bees from box into your house.
oh yeah, okay, sure.
Oh, I have one more question.
Sure.
What do they do in the winter?
They cluster. They actually move up in the hive as they eat out their honey. The hive keeps moving up. In the spring, you actually have to reverse the boxes because once you're all the way at the top, they're going to say there's nothing left. I'm going to
Right.
swarm. So
Okay,
but in the winter when it gets cold, if they're breeding in the winter and that slows down a bit, they maintain a core temperature of 90+ degrees, regardless of how cold it is outside. You do not wrap your hive. Not in Maryland. If you live up in North Dakota, Minnesota, where you have a lot of cold temperatures for a persistent amount of time, you might wrap your hive, or you might put up some wind blocks. But in this climate here, I'm not aware of anybody having to do that kind of stuff. Like, did your dad ever? Do you remember, Stacia?
We just always had it.
He just always had the hive. So
Never
some
mind.
people say they wrap them in tar paper, which you put under shingles for your roofing. But then a lot of people have said, you know what, I did that, I don't do it anymore, and it's just fine. So, but they cluster, and through the wing activity, they maintain heat. So, and they hardly break clusters, so they really move up as a group, because they found out that bees have starved away from a honey source as little as 2 inches away, because they will not break cluster. They move as a whole, or they freeze. So, and below 45 degrees, bees will freeze, they fall to the ground, and they'll perish. So I'm glad. I've been watching the weather very keenly. I think it's somewhere around 62, 63 degrees now. Good time for it. Anything colder and you start having to move a little faster. So I'm not worried about having them out on the back deck, even in the shade now. So, all right. So then when we install this, and Mike and Kevin are going to help me and keep me honest on my steps.
Hyman, is the front upside down? The entrance?
Oh yeah, I don't have it in yet.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the little reducer. It's a very young colony. They can't defend themselves yet. So if they have to defend this whole slot here, there's a lot of work that they have to do. You have other bees come in, wasps, everybody wants something of this hive because they got sugar syrup, right? So you take it down to that notch, and that's enough for them to get through, and it's enough to defend at the entrance. And then later on, when it gets real busy, you switch it to that.
Do you ever get to fully open slot?
Yeah, if you have a very strong hive and a lot of activity, you might as well take it off at that point. But you got to be confident that you have a strong, healthy hive going, so that they can kick out whoever might come in. And then the hive stand really serves two purposes. For one, a lot of beekeepers have back problems because they forget good habits and they lift like that. So, that's right, you got to squat down, you bring them up, but the deeper you go down, the higher you have to lift, right? So, also, I'm not going to have water penetration problems. There's not going to be a torrential downpour that's going to flush into the entrance like that. And lastly, when you have something like a raccoon come up, he might want something sweet. He's going to try to get up on his hind legs. He's going to look around. When these animals, these rodents, get on their hind legs, they expose their underbelly, which is a prime target for a bee sting. So it makes it very defendable because it's a very sensitive area for an animal to expose. So it all helps with the hive.
Have you seen raccoons around here?
No, but groundhogs, right?
We've seen possums in our backyard.
See Murray yet?
No, I think he's still hibernating.
Still under the deck?
Yeah, pretty much.
What about foxes? You should.
Yeah, you see foxes. They,
Yeah, we haven't had our foxes around.
Alrighty, so let's suit up and we'll go from there.